Namaste, everybody. Hope you guys are all well. Hope you guys are all thriving. Just let me sort this out, get the optimal situation here. And yeah, we are here. I'm here with TallTree. We are live. Sorry, we're late as per the usual. It's one of those days. At least I've been busy. I've been functional. I've been working. I've been with my clients. I've done what I need to do. I've fixed broken things. I've made my son breakfast. Well, his second breakfast, which is my breakfast, which I'm going to have while I'm talking. It's a good smoothie. So we're going to be talking about esoteric keys of self-knowledge. And obviously with us in the studio is TallTree. We love TallTree. We love his grounded, practical, common sense. Welcome, dear brother. He's a father. He's a lover. He's a bit of a soldier. He's a bit of a soldier boy. He goes into the wild with his guns and his camouflage and prepares himself for hopefully something that never has to happen. But we look at what's going on around us in the world and we wonder what the future holds. So, you know, he's grounded. He's in the real world. Welcome, dear brother. How are you doing? It's an honor to have you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm doing good. So just right before we were talking here, I was on X or Twitter, and I was reading about the Caduceus. Caduceus? Is that how you say it? Yeah. I got sucked into reading about it, which I thought was very interesting. And it was first talking about how Plato, if you were a student of Plato, you were required to be celibate unless you engaged in sexual union for the purpose of creating children, because he believed that a man's semen had basically soul or soul stuff in it, and that is what gave a new human being its soul, something like that. And he believed that this substance was in the brain, and it would travel down a channel in the spinal column to the penis, and come out during sex. And so the purpose of celibacy was to keep it in the brain, because if it's constantly coming down and going out, well, then you're just losing brain power. And obviously in the was it the Eastern traditions, what is it called, Kundalini, right, something about Kundalini, where the energy of Kundalini is lower in the chakra stack, and somehow it can travel up, or and that's what the Caduceus or Caduceus is a representation of, where it's basically, the main pole is some sort of axis. It could be the spine. The two serpents are traditionally associated with wisdom. There's two of them, so there's duality there. And they're winding, they wind up, or what we consider up, to some sort of point that has wings, and wings are representative of flight, or expansion, um, off the ground. But and apparently, reading a little bit more, apparently, this symbol is it's very old. Um, it might be it might be one of the oldest. So one of the oldest symbols. So that tells you that uh humans at least have been aware of um some sort of relationship between um the energies of the body and the mind, and of some sort of technique, like 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 real world physical techniques that can be employed uh to manipulate these energies, kind of like a chi master, right? Can move around the energy, um and bring these energies up for some sort of, I don't know, some sort of reason. What do you got to say, Bush?
Sorry, it took me a while to navigate out of all of those things. I'm trying to download an image because I wanted to show you guys a pretty picture. And the pretty picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. So here we've got the caduceus, and absolutely, it's interesting that the word Christ, from the root of the word Christ, from Christos, actually means the anointed oil, the smear. And it's got to do with the Eleusinian mysteries and the practices from, and big love, systematic namaste. And who else we got here? Night, welcome Night. I hope you're good. Hope you guys are thriving. Let me turn up my brightness on my screen. Big love and blessings to all of you and everybody else that's watching. Om Namah Shivaya. So yeah, the caduceus does represent the kundalini, and the kundalini isn't below the spine. That's just exoteric misunderstanding by the yoga teachers that to become a yoga teacher, you can have a passing, vague interest in yoga and do a little bit of yoga casually, learn to stretch your body, then pay $4,000, go and do an intensive yoga teacher training course, and then pay another $2,000 or $3,000 and go and do the next training course. Take a few weeks apart. So you can easily, within 6 months of reading your first book on yoga, be an accredited yoga teacher with hardly any experience of yoga. And this is very common, unfortunately, in most of the yoga schools. So, it's really, I think it's like a 6 to 8 week course. Yeah. And you do one, and then you come back and you do, I think there's another batch that you do for being able to teach the final course. I know there's slightly different Satchidananda school and the Shivananda school. They're slightly different, but that's basically what it is. It's like if you got like $6,000 or $7,000 in your pocket, 6 months to kill, you are an accredited yoga teacher if that's what you want and that's your career and you can make money out of it. And then as a yoga teacher, you can quite easily make $100 a class, right? If you get your ducks in a line. And you can do 2 classes a day, maybe, you can quite easily get yourself a comfortable $6,000 to $8,000 a month. If you jack yourself up, spend maybe $1,000 a month on your advertising, pocket the other $7,000, maybe $1,000 for your yoga studio space to be able to use for those times, pockets, $6,000. So there you go. There's a very easy $72,000 a year to earn, and you don't have to go to university, right? You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of studying and to get a professional and then have to work your way up into some kind of an industry. So this is why the exoteric understanding of yoga is so prominent and widespread, because most of the people that teach yoga, they learned a little bit about how to stretch their bodies. They've read a couple of cute new age books. They went to India for 1 or 2 little trips, but they were like cocooned in a little capsulated space with everybody else who's all in this wonder of we are all now in the presence of enlightenment and all that jazz, which is all sweet and lovely. So yeah, getting into what the Kundalini really is the Kundalini is the source of life running through your body. It's the life current, right? It's the pranic energy that is manifesting into physical hormonal form, right? And it is running throughout your entire system, but there's a lot of it that gets stuck and gets trapped in your physical body. And because it gets trapped in your physical body, you can release it through your Muladhara chakra. Does that make sense? It's not, they speak about it in metaphysical terms as a sleeping serpent. But this has got to do with the conscious realization of the fact that this Kundalini is running through your body and your consciousness. And it's running all the time, but you can become consciously aware of that process. And there tends to be a lot of the identity that we have relating to who we are trapped in our bodies, right? We look in the mirror and we think that's me. Yeah. We learn the things we've been taught about ourselves and we think that's who we are. So essentially this Kundalini energy is the substance of the prana that has become differentiated. And this is that polarizing potential within us that brings forth the life current. And that life current is very associated with the libido and the ability to breathe. So that they like fundamentally linked. And so when we speak about the caduceus represents these two ideas. Let me show you the Vedic image of this version of this picture to give you a more clear idea of. Let's see where we go. Downloads. I just want to see if I've got the right picture here because it's just giving me like bad. No. Did I call it Ajna? It's got Ajna somewhere in the word. Let me just find this image quickly. Chakra. Let me find this image, manually move it. This system really can be a bit of a wind up sometimes.
You can do it.
This is the problem. Well, when you get an image and you try and download an image from the web, it gives you the image in this weird form that you can't upload it into StreamYard. So
all right,
I'll just
hold
have
on.
to.
Can't you do a screen grab?
I tried, and this is what I'm going to do now. That's my next. I wanted to share the image, but they've got the image on the left-hand side of the screen and you can't move it, which is annoying. And so we're going to have it stuck little image on the side of the screen. So I want to get a proper scale image size. There we go. Now I've screen grabbed it. Now let me just save it as Ajna. That's what I'll save it as in pictures. And there we go. Now we'll actually be able to look at the screen grab. So yeah, basically you'll see the Vedic version of this and you'll understand exactly how the image works and what they're basically saying, which is essentially the Vedic way of understanding this concept. Image and Ajna. Oh, come on, you don't have to be so damn difficult about it. There we go, finally. So here you can see the Vedic version of it. And you can see that you've got the two petals that represent the Ida and the Pingala on either side, right? And you can see that they are bound in a unity by the three principles, the three fundamental principles, which is essentially the Trinity, the triple goddess, however you want to look at it. Hence, that is that the triangle, which is manifesting down into matter, which is Om, which represents the A, the U, and the M, which is why there are three parts of the Om, right? The crescent, the dot, and the other image. Those are the three parts representing the three parts of the triangle. And then that is part of three parts, which is the Om Tat Sat, which is the scale of the enneagram, the nine principles. But here we can see that these two petals are really essentially part of a singular system that are bonding to form a trinity. And when we look at the image here, we can see in the other image, we see the same thing, right? We can see here that we have a single staff, right? And we have three principles. We have one serpent and we have another serpent, and they are wound around a single staff. And that single staff represents the two wings attached to the petal, which is exactly what we are seeing here. We're looking at the single sphere with the two wings at the top that represents the Ajna chakra. So, fundamentally, the idea is universal. The idea is the same. It's no different to the Vedic concept. And so they would have called it Kundalini in the West. They would call it Jing in China. So in China, you've got, once again, the three principles. You've got the Shen, you've got the Qi, and you've got the Jing. And the Shen becomes more solidic, becomes more dense to form the Qi. And the Qi becomes more dense to form the Jing. But the Jing is the dense part of the energy field. And that dense part of the energy field tends to congeal in the physical body, which is why we relate sex with our bodies, even though sex is as much an emotional exchange as what it is a physical rubbing of, nerves. There's an emotional component to it. So that Jing carries the Qi and it carries the Shen, which is why the Kundalini carries the elements of spirit in it in the same way that Jing does. So whether you're using Taoist system of Jing or speaking about Kundalini or speaking about the Christ or the Christos of the ancient Greeks, it's all the same thing. And it's fundamental to our persona, actually, interestingly enough, because our personality tends to be hinged into our bodies. So we think of ourselves as being our bodies in the way that we've been taught to identify, self-identify. And that sort of leaves us in a position to sort of to relate everything to our physical form. This is why so much spirituality is related to the body. Our deities look like us, right? God, we imagine to be a human form. We cannot help but to project this idea of our human form and our human body onto absolutely everything that we identify with psychologically, spiritually, mentally. And a lot of this has got to do with the fact that that component of the Jing or the Kundalini or the Christos is so heavily identified with physicality and the manifestation of the physical body. And it is essentially, another thing to realize, this is the glyph of the seventh Hermetic principle, right? And the seventh Hermetic principle is the principle that regulates masculine and feminine. So you've got like these seven principles, which are seven foundational aspects of the human consciousness. First, that we are a mental being, pure thought, that this pure thought becomes vibration. And the vibration of the pure thought becoming vibration means that some aspect of that which is complete in itself, pure state of thought, some part needs to project outside of itself. But it projects outside of itself without actually losing a part of itself in the process. So it's an after image, if you will, an illusion that it projects outside of itself, a copy of it, an aspect of itself. But this projection isn't real. So it needs to continually keep projecting it, and it projects it really, really fast. And we call that vibration, right? Antimatter, matter, antimatter, matter, because there's nothing really there. There's just these continual projections of this mental field. And these projections we call vibrations. And because the vibrations are in sync, they have to have a corresponding feature because they correspond to the fundamental state of thought. So the second principle of correspondence regulates this projection outside of itself, which we experience as vibration. The vibration represents energy, which is a polarity, which is the fourth principle of Hermes, and that polarizing aspect means that any projection or any shape needs to have dimension to it. In other words, a positive and a negative pole for it to be able to exist and non-exist, matter, antimatter, 0, naught. I mean, 0 and 1, for example, as a concept. Both are representing infinity. This is something people don't recognize. One represents infinity because it's everything in one, which is infinite. 0 represents infinity because it's everything in nothing. It's infinite. So the only two infinite numbers that there are is 1 and 0. Hence, they are our binary code for our computers, because they are two polarized infinite principles that are in a state of union. And so that's also another thing that this caduceus is representing, is this union between the two different potential states of infinity that we can conceptualize. And so this polarizing energetic field that comes into being due to the vibration being corresponded out of the fundamental state of being, which is thought, produces a rhythm, because the rhythm is what regulates the vibrational field. And these rhythms are then producing cadence, and the cadence produces causes and effects due to the different varying rhythms of vibration affecting other rhythms of vibration. The cause of one rhythm becomes the effect upon another rhythm. And so goes the chain of correspondence and effect of cause and effect. And thus this becomes the sixth principle. And this cause and effect produces a myriad of different potentials, which are then reunified. And that reunification is back towards unity. So the unified state is pure thought, the first principle of Hermes. Then you have these 5 principles of differentiation, and the 7th principle then becomes the reunification, and that's what this represents. It represents the two serpents becoming intertwined upon the Shushumna, which is the middle pillar, the middle channel. And when these two become intertwined, they are becoming singular. They are becoming a singular state of being that represents the two polarities wrapped up within itself, which is back to singularity. And so the body represents bringing all of these different multiplicities together in one single, seemingly infinite state of form. This is why form is singular, and why if there's a continuity of form, why every part of form is in a flow with every other part of form, why they're not just separate little chunks of form. Hope that makes sense. Sounds weird when I say it.
Good job.
So yeah.
Does everybody get that?
So basically, this caduceus represents the body in a sense.
Oh yeah.
It represents the body, but it represents the body unifying everything, and it shows all the spiritual influences that are attached to the body. So this is why in Kundalini, they say that it's wrapped up in your Muladhara chakra, right?
Where's that chakra?
Because the root chakra.
The root chakra,
right?
okay.
Yeah, they say that the Kundalini is a sleeping serpent in the root chakra. This metaphor is representing all these things that I've been saying now. Is that
yeah.
Is that the?
Oh, I was going to say, is that the butthole chakra?
Yes, it's the center of analysis.
Yeah.
That's why we have anal eyes down there, right? We use our anal eyes to analyze, to anal to look at things through our butthole when we want to get the logic of something pegged. And so it has strong associations with that logical thinking, rational being the key. You know, and that's why we call it a rat hole, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a rational hole, you know.
Yeah. There's no confusion down there. You know what you're gonna get, as opposed to if you go this way, you just you got the physical face, you got the dazzle of the eyes, the mouth is speaking words that can confuse you. There's no confusion in the butthole.
There's only one thing that comes out of it.
Only one thing.
Then you know what it is.
Right.
You know what it smells like, and
Yeah. You gotta ask and you just gotta work backwards. Working backwards from first principles. So, um, so how? Okay, so to get back to what the ancients. I mean the ancients and the moderns, because I don't think that any of this, as you've just proven, I don't think any of this knowledge is lost. Uh, and honestly, I don't even think it's as widely disseminated um, as as it seems to be now, as it was back then. Like you can go on the internet and just find some go on the internet, look for books, and you can read all about this kundalini and the chakras. But I think actually doing the work to experience um to experience like a kundalini awakening, as they say, um that might be a bit out of the grasp of people, normal people. But if you could, so okay, so we say that we start a yoga school. Okay, we're gonna start a yoga school, but we're gonna be a real yoga school. Everyone's gonna die around 27, 33 years old. All right, but in order to get to that point, we got to do some real work. All right, how would one, um obviously there's celibacy, but how would one start to work with this energy? Like, actually become like it's in us every day. We're breathing, we're eating, we're shitting, we're eating food and whatever. How would you actually become aware of this energy? And what would you do with it?
Okay. So, as the image says, right? The image shows Om, and Om represents the fundamental sound, the principle of vibration that manifests the three aspects of being. The three key aspects of being that everything is a mental emanation, and that the mental emanation is in a state of vibration that is manifesting the universe, and that there is a field of correspondence between that which is and cannot be changed, that cannot be divided, cannot be multiplied, cannot be added to, cannot be subtracted from, that is the subtotality of all being, that is beyond time and is in truth eternal, that aspect which is essentially a part of us, becoming the field of vibration that is a limited expression of sound through which all the different modalities of being can be experienced, including this physical modality of being that we are sort of locked into here in this incarnation. Um, there's these three principles. We could think of them in many ways. We could think of them as Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, or the Trinity, God the Father, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Child, or the triple goddess, right? We could think of them as three fundamental aspects, abstract principles of the principle of power and will, the principle of wisdom and knowledge, and the principle of love and being. And to recognize that within us there are these three principles, and these three principles align to the etheric, they align to the astral, and they align to the causal. The causal being that part of us which is moving from one existence to another, moving from one life to another. That part of us that survives when this body falls to pieces, and when the etheric body falls out of this body, and when the astral body lets go of that and gets floating off in astral space. And the causal body then moves to its next incarnation and creates a new astral body. And through that astral body creates a new etheric body. And through the etheric body manifests a new physical body. Yeah. So that causal part, which is the soul, which is the seat of the soul, is essentially related to the Om, right? And it relates to the principle of correspondence, to the principle of mentalism, and to the principle of vibration, which is why the soul has its powers, or the siddhi. So basically, how can we recognize? Well, firstly, we recognize in all parts of life there are three elements, and we become aware of these three fundamental elements, and that these three elements are always relating to a state of balance, yang and yin. And so we become aware that everything in life is give and take, but the give and take is, there is something that is given to and taken from, right? In the principle of give and take. So there always has to be three, because it cannot be give and take unless there is something to give and take to and from. So that thing that is from, we see the circle here, right, with the Om in it. And then there is that what gives to us on the right petal, and what takes from us on the left petal, or what we give to it on the left petal, and what we take from it on the right petal. So there's these two relationships of yang and yin that we're having. And you could think of this image here as representing the Tao, if you're a Taoist, for example, because it's the same thing, right? You think about what a yang yin is. It represents that there is this power, right, which is a sphere that has two aspects that are in total harmony and balance with each other, but they are expressions of the same thing. That's why within the darkness you find the light, and within the light you find the darkness. So if you look at this here, you can see that you have these two petals that are expressions externally of what the sphere is on the center. However, within the center, it's showing us that there's three principles. So these three principles are governed by a set of polarizing effects. And those polarizing effects are the externalized polarizations of these three principles. So there's always going to be a mystic 2 where there's a 3. And so the mystic 2 of the 3 is that balance. So how do we move towards it? We start questioning balance. We start finding balance within our life. You'd speak about celibacy. I'll tell you about celibacy. I mean, I've done a lot of celibacy in my life. And you know, man, I used to rock celibacy. I would rock celibacy and be bathing with a lot of my friends. Beautiful women. I used to bath with them. We used to shower together. I used to sleep with like gorgeous naked women in my bed with me. When I lived in Israel, I was naked on my beach all the time. And I always had all these gorgeous women coming. I had all these Israeli guys that wanted to come and hang out there every weekend. They were like, no, you always have these beautiful women here. Where's this woman come? How they find you? I don't know. Like, they used to tease me. They said, and you are celibate. You don't even, you don't even want anything that's on display. Because I was a Chovak Ziv. It's like such an amazing beach in Israel. And so even though I was celibate, I was working with my Kundalini. That's the key, right? If you aren't celibate, and if you are celibate and you are not aware of and know how to work with your Kundalini, you're going to have a problem, right? Because you have a sexual impulse. You can't just pretend you're not a sexual being and just repress it all and go, I'm not sexual. Because you know what that's going to do as a man, right? It's going to cause some part of your psyche to become twisted. So you need to recognize that you're a sexual being, and you need to somehow work with that energy. And so if you're consciously working with that energy every evening, you're meditating on that energy, and you're flowing that energy through your body, through your meridians, and you're achieving some kind of an internal psychological orgasm, right? Through the processes of working with that Kundalini energy. It's not a physical orgasm. You might not be having an ejaculation or any such thing, but you're having some kind of a euphoric feeling inside your energy body, which is somehow related to sex. So you feel as if you had sex.
If I can, so I did all this, very, not recklessly, but just kind of intuitively, and not I really didn't have a plan. I was just kind of like riding. I was just kind of riding this wave, and I'm not sure why it all took place, but I pretty much just like woke up one morning and was like, I'm not. I'm gonna be celibate for a while. Uh,
This was before you became a father, right?
yes, yes, yeah. I was with my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time, but anyways, and
Let me guess. She became your ex-wife when you became celibate?
a little bit, yeah, yeah. It was kind of rocky, but what, b- what I experienced was so there was intent. I did it. It it wasn't like I was having. This wasn't like an involuntary thing. This was voluntary. I said to myself like I'm gonna be celibate, and I wanted because I what I wanted was I wanted to feel the intensity, or I wanted to see how intense the generative energy could be inside of me. Does that make sense? And what it was heat. It was a lot of heat. And when I would and then when I would interact with a female, like at work or something, there was this just um I was able just to like to speak and to interact like so much better. Like it wasn't really like a confidence thing or anything like that. It was just like this communication just like opened up inside of me. And it was very interesting. But knowing that knowing that nothing was going to happen like sexually, what and the feeling of that heat and that energy, that was euphoric, just as you're saying. There was this euphoria, where and I had it was very it was interesting and at first very alarming because it kind of felt like I was on drugs, you know. And but anyways, uh there's more, but keep I want to keep hearing from you.
So basically those women are getting attracted to you. And you were enjoying that you were like attractive to the woman. Because when a man doesn't want to sleep with a woman gets more attracted to a man. It's the damnedest thing. Right? Women are attracted. Women want to be wanted, right? And if they know that they got to work to make you want them, they're going to appreciate you so much more. Isn't that weird? There's like a little bit of a heads up to the blokes outside there. Like, if you're interested in women, become celibate. It's almost counterintuitive, you know? Like, like, and, but yeah, so if one is wanting to have sex with those women and one is just denying the wanting to have sex and repressing that emotion. So it's got to come from the right place to begin with. Like you say, it's got to come from an altruistic place. It's got to be a yearning that's so deeply emotional that it drives you. If it's not coming from that pure place, then what will happen is repressed sexuality can happen, and the men can then start to resent women on an unconscious level, right? Because they're not getting something that they need or want. Or it can go worse. I mean, look at the paradigm of men in black dresses, right? You know who I'm talking about when I speak about the men in black dresses.
Yeah.
They worship a pope, and the men in black dresses have got the highest statistical wrongful love of children disease. out of any group of people on earth.
That's what I've
Yeah.
heard.
And I mean, so the police forces from all around the world have records of,
Right.
and the courts, and and that's after it's been covered up like left, right, and center. Like, for example, a lot of places, like, because it's the church, people would be like, okay, well, we'll let you handle it in house, and the church would be like, no, we're going to deal with this, don't worry. And in the old days, like, people would be like, oh well, it's the church. They think it's an isolated situation. They think it's just that guy. They don't realize that men in black dresses fraternity is just going to pick up that man and send him to the next town and let him do it again until he gets busted again, and then pick him up and send him to the next town. So the reason for that is because these people were being forced into celibacy that they didn't feel in their hearts. Does that make sense? And they didn't have an outlet for that energy, and they didn't get to go and interact normally with women. And that celibacy is probably why you fell in love and met a proper mate, right? Because you purified your energy body to such a high degree, you then attracted someone that you could actually have a child and a family with, as opposed to just great sex. I mean, not that you don't have great sex, but I mean, like, well, you probably, how many kids you guys got on the way?
Yeah. Well, I'll say, well, it, the whole process really could have, now that, I look back on it, like the whole process really could have used, I mean, it went down the way it went down, but like, if, for instance, I assume, I'm thinking like if someone were in an ashram, um, that this sort of thing would be taught in guided. You would have the student would have some sort of interaction with a teacher about, and the student be like, "Hey, I'm feeling this," and the teacher would be like, "That's very interesting. Perhaps try this." And the energy is more, um the student's more in control of the energy. But when I think with me at the moment of, after the after the after the rise of the energy and the both expulsion and, it was like an expulsion, and it was also like a download. um afterwards, the 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 f- like being purified, it was honestly kind of terrifying, because it was like when if you're like, imagine being a snake, right? And you have to shed a skin. It's usually kind of like a slow process with snakes. I don't know if you've ever seen them do it, but they start rubbing their head, and then they're kind of like rubbing themselves on sticks and leaves, and they rest a little bit, and then they keep going. Um, this was more of like a, and then you're this new thing, and you're like, and the feeling was like very light, felt very light, and I could do anything, and I was there was this clarity, but it was honestly, it was like, it was scary. It was like, something has happened. I don't know what's going on. I'm this new thing, or if, at least it feels like it. Um, and then um, and then I cried. I did some crying. I did some crying, and then I made a decision, which was, it was like, it was like one of those points where it's like, okay, there's a few different ways to go, and I'm gonna choose one way, and that's my life path, right? I'm gonna make this decision. Now my life is going this way. So I did that, and then I slipped into basically a coma for probably about 3 or 4 hours until
Which mean
until
literally a coma.
so this has happened.
You
I
were
think
you were
this is
hospitalized.
no.
Okay.
No. Uh, I I lost consciousness um
Right.
on the couch, and nothing was gonna wake me up. No noise, nothing. No commotion, nothing woke me up.
You had
Um,
bush whisperer sleep.
oh yeah, this was slipping off into the Shadowlands. No dreams, just done. Um, and because I mean, now that I look back at it, I mean, I had I I had all this energy inside my body, and my body was a vessel for just all this stuff, and the energy, it was like like scraping off the rust inside, right? And then at a certain point out in nature, and the sun came down, it pierced me, opened up, all this came out energetically, and then the body and the mind just needed to shut down and and rest is what it was. It was deep rest. And if I hadn't, my partner, my wife, um, she didn't, obviously she was not privy to any of what was going on, even though she knew something was going on. Uh, Woke me up to tell me to go to bed, but I'm sure I could have stayed on that couch for
That was your ex-wife, yeah?
uh, well, no, it's the same person.
Okay. So you were you married before?
No,
Okay, good. So you went through a celibacy while you were in a relationship. Well, that's good. It shows the strength of your relationship. It shows that
yeah,
it's like a strong, solid connection, which I imagine it is, because you look at your little girl; she's really lovely. So that
yeah.
must, that comes from somewhere. But so that's really good. That's really powerful, man. Um, yeah, that's not unusual. That requirement for a reset. Like,
Mhm.
hypothetically, let's say you were to find crystals, yeah,
Mm.
DMT crystal.
Okay.
Like, you can't compare it to ayahuasca. All right, it's like ayahuasca is like a beer shandy. DMT crystals is like 80% vodka.
Mm.
80%. They make 80% proof vodka in Russia.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had stronger alcohol.
85%, whatever. Yeah, I mean, that people make alcohol like that is just blindingly maddening to me. Like, what would you need it for? Like, what's wrong with the 45%? It's more than strong enough to put you on your ass. But
I've
anyway,
got some, just the tangent, I've got some moonshine in my refrigerator, which is extremely high alcohol, made from, fruit, and it's not like it's not like this, acidic, burning, stuff. It's actually quite smooth and very, very tasty. So, it might be the vodka they make, it might be very, very nice. It just gets you
I
fucked
I
up.
had nice vodka. I had nice vodka that was 80. I used to buy this really rare, hard to find special Russian vodka that was like more than 80% proof, 85% proof. And I used it for making perfume and that.
Mm, mm.
And the one night, like, I had people around, they were like, "Oh, go on, you've got that vodka." Because I said, "Well, I've got vodka, but it's not really, I don't use it for drinking." And they were like, "You've got like a half a bottle of vodka, get it out." And I got it out and we drank it, and it was damn nice. But we all got off our face on a half a bottle of vodka. There were like 3 or 4 of us, and we
Yeah.
were all like pretty pissed on a half a bottle of vodka. I was like, that's quite a half a bottle of vodka indeed. But you're right, it doesn't necessarily taste like what you would expect. It's not like drinking rubbing alcohol or something like that. Um,
But
but
anyways,
yeah, getting back to the topic,
yeah.
of the so the esoteric keys of self-knowledge, and how they relate to this. This is one of the important esoteric keys of self-knowledge. Essentially, what we're talking about here is the sexual key, right? And how the sexual key relates. Another one of the important esoteric keys is the intellectual key, right? Obviously, very important key. And another important key is the emotional key. That's the my feelings, how I feel about myself, how I feel about life key. And those three keys are like rather fundamental keys. And but they're not that separated, right? Because like you pointed out, the sexual key will have a bleeding over effect on your intellectual key. And your emotional key will be affected by your sexual key. Like you feel pretty good about yourself after you make a woman come as a man, right? You go like, yeah, man. Woohoo! You're the man. you know, you know what I'm talking about? That feeling
Oh,
of yeah, I'm a man feeling.
it's an accomplishment. Yeah.
And yes, it's a feeling like you've done something. I've done something worthwhile with my day. What have you done with your day, man? I've done something worthwhile, kind of feeling. And so there's an empowerment that goes two ways. The same way that a woman feels good about herself when she gets her man like aroused and all of that. She feels, I'm beautiful, I'm sexy, I'm gorgeous. Look at him here. And that's a sense of personal empowerment. So sexuality is a very empowering force, or very disempowering force. A good friend of mine used to have. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. Sort of lost touch. He had a problem. The problem was he had become a bit of a player, and it started off with him being an actor and playing the role of a dodgy king. Which king was it? That was like all into weird stuff. And so he was a method actor, and he went and did the things,
Tiberius?
and he got a taste for it. Huh?
Nero? Tiberius? Roman king?
No, British
Roman emperor?
English king.
English
Was
king.
it King
Okay.
Henry the King Henry debauchery?
Okay.
The King Henry, I think it was King Henry, was like no, debauchery. King Henry the Eighth, right?
Yeah.
He was the most debaucherous king of all time.
Okay.
And he was playing King Henry the Eighth in a play.
Hmm.
So
So
he
let me
went to
guess.
go.
So let me guess. He
Yeah.
opened up a portal.
Yep.
And in came Henry, and he didn't have your friend didn't have a way or of expelling him after he played. Think about how many times that has probably happened to the people that we watch on TV.
Exactly. And I had actually taught him. I'd actually taught him before that when he was going to do that part. I told him, I'd warned him. He was going to do that part. And I said to him, I actually warned him about it. I said, are you sure you want to do that part? He said, yeah. And so I'd said to him, well, you need to ritualize this. You need to have a ritualized object. You need to treat that ritualized object with ritualistic respect. Get a sacred box. Put sacred jewelry in that box. You only wear that jewelry, and you turn that to activate that jewelry when you're going into character. When you come out, you take that thing and you sacredly wrap it up in your silk, and you put it back in your sacred box, and you go and have a shower and clean it off yourself. And I explained to him, you have to have this kind of deliberate ritualistic purity if you want to work with that kind of energy, because it's dangerous. But anyway, he did it, and then he got a taste for it. And next thing, he couldn't get enough of the wild, debaucherous thing. And one of the things he had done was he had gone to like really high class prostitutes. He had come and told me afterwards, like, I've been doing this thing, dude. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. And he used to get a kick out of it, like going to like the highest class prostitutes. And sorry, I'm just making sure my cockatiel's not playing with the cables, and get a kick out of going to like a 5-star hotel and going under a false name and getting a room and getting like a high class prostitute, and like $5,000-$10,000 later, and then not paying and finding a way to like duck out and get away with it, and using false like information and everything. And I was like, dude, this sounds elaborate, dude. It's like you're gonna get into trouble. Firstly, some point they're gonna catch you, and you might catch a disease. Just because they're a high class prostitute doesn't mean they don't have diseases, right? Just because a prostitute charges like $2,000 or $3,000, doesn't mean that she's not, been around with guys who've been around with other high class prostitutes, who've been around with other guys, who've been around with other guys, who've been with high class prostitutes, But anyway, bottom line was he had developed this pattern, and he was confiding in me, and he was saying to me, the thing about this lifestyle that hurts the most is after I've had sex with a woman that I don't really know and I don't really love, the way it feels, that hollow feeling afterwards, and how they look at you and how it makes you feel, like and so it obviously takes a significant it does a significant lot of harm to one's self-image. It's not the same as being in bed with like someone you love and who loves you, and there's a safe, warm feeling, and you're holding each other, and it's a good feeling, right? It's not like that.
Yeah,
and that safe, warm feeling is important for self-esteem
right.
and for self-worth.
It's the other way is it sounds demonic. It sounds like it sounds like the like consider a jinn, riding you, pushing you towards sex, and you're just coming up with all these machinations to get to finally get to the point of and then right after that it's just laughing at you, because not only did it gain energy from your machinations and you having sex and all that, but now it's gaining energy from uh your self-loathing, that hollowness, all that negativity, um like just as you described.
So yeah, and that was somebody who was like a good friend of mine. He used to, and I used to often talk to him. I used to say, dude, like you really gotta you just gotta bite the bullet, man. You gotta go cold turkey. You gotta clean yourself out. You need to go celibate for like a whole year, and then meet a really nice woman, and
Yeah.
leave your past behind. And I hope he did. I think he did.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point being, so that sexual energy is very important for our sense of well-being and our sense of emotional health. And men equate a lot to our sexuality, right? Women too, if a woman doesn't feel sexually attractive, she feels unimportant in a social atmosphere with other women very often, right? And that's not just, we've equated sexuality to like how good you look, and people haven't realized that that's only one part of sexuality, right? There's a whole dimension of sexuality, like that's got very little to do with the way you look. It's got
Yeah,
a lot to
there's
do with the way you carry yourself, your confidence, your energy, you know.
yeah, I mean, there's I mean, look, to be honest, there's a lot of ugly ass people out there who are married together and have children. Um, so, what's going on there? I think with the I unfortunately nowadays, like with for a man, I think having a purpose uh is probably, a purpose he's driving himself towards or being driven by is probably a little more important um than having a woman. and having a lot of sex. Um, I think that's why early in a man's life, um, he should probably he should educate himself on women, but mostly avoid them, and work on himself, and figure out what he's doing, where he's going, and what he's going to do. Um, because I feel like if you're doing that and you're building yourself up and you're creating, your solid foundations, um, like eventually a woman will come. The right woman will come. Um, and I feel like I understand that there's a lot of there's a lot of cultural bullshit going on, with the male and female relations. Um, it seems like a lot, especially in America. Um, Expectations are screwed up, and um, opportunity is lacking, and so on and so forth. Um, but there's a lot of people. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of guys, and it might be a little harder, but I don't think it's impossible for people to find each other. For the right people to find each other. Anyways.
Yeah. So, and why this is so important is because self-knowledge, just to get into that aspect of this conversation, right? Self-knowledge relates very much to power. People don't realize this, right? If we don't know who we are, we don't have power over ourselves. If we don't have power over ourselves, we can't know who we are. Because knowing who we are is the currency of power over the self, right? If I know who I am, I know what I want, I know what makes me tick, I know what my priorities are, I'm more likely to be able to steer myself through life towards a direction and an outcome that I'm more likely to want than not. Ignorance means you can be easily manipulated, you can be easily dominated, you can be easily controlled, right? Self-knowledge means you cannot be manipulated and controlled so easily because your core runs deep. And so the sexual identity aligns with the emotional self. And the emotional self represents the past, right? It represents the memories of who we've been, the memories of what we've been through, the experiences that we've had in life, and the way that we have become emotionally conditioned as a result of these potentials and forces of our pasts that have shaped us. And so that self-knowledge works in two ways. Notice this petal, this picture, right? You got the two petals. Can you see that one petal is moving towards the past and one petal is moving towards the future as a polarity, for example, right? So you could say that the emotional side, the right-hand side, the Ida channel, is bringing your past sensations through your emotional body to shape who you are. And your aspirations for the future, who you want to become, is moving up through the Pingala channel, up the left side of this image, to shape what you will become. And so what you will become is based upon your proverbial plan, I use that word loosely, for the future. And who you've been will shape the emotional heritage that you carry in the present. So the emotional heritage that you carry in the present is going to limit the potential of the future plan of who you can become in the future. So there's this fundamental connection between the past and the future within this diagram, within the caduceus as well. You could argue that those two serpents represent the one serpent of change in the future and the serpent of change in the past, serpent representing change. And so we are this sort of wheel in the center of two mechanisms of change. And that sexual energy is represented by the serpent. Why? Because it represents change. So the most raw and earthbound way in which we can change is sexuality. Because what drives sexuality? Passion. What is passion? Passion is a result of feeling. What is feeling? Feeling is a recognized and realized emotion. So you have an abstract form of emotion, which is abstract. You then put it into some kind of perspective, it becomes a feeling. You then, the feeling embodies a certain passionate state of being, which is now how you become your passion. And that passion will drive you forward. And based upon how that passion has driven you forward, you will then have, as a result of that passion, an ideological leaning towards a particular direction. And that ideological leaning towards that particular direction will drive in kind an aspiration, right? And that aspiration will be connecting you to your what do you call it? Your vocation. And when I say vocation, I mean your life's work, as it were.
Mhm.
And so there's this rounding where your emotions and your passions and your feelings are driving your thoughts. So to recognize this polarity within the self and to realize that the way we feel about ourselves because of our past and the aspirations we have towards ourselves are connected. And we can literally change the way we feel about ourselves, right? By looking at ourselves and analyzing ourselves. You see, here's a kundalini. You see, why is the kundalini? Why is the prana? Why is it trapped in the root chakra? Because when we analyze ourselves, we can rechange, we can change our emotional perspectives of ourselves. Analyze why we feel the way we feel about ourselves in the past. Analyze, and we realize, oh, I felt like that because of this. Oh, I feel like that because of that. Oh, right. My father or my mother or my uncle or my auntie or my brother used to say that to me a lot and do that to me. That made me feel like this, and that made me behave like this. That made me do that. That made me attract a woman like this. That made her say this to me. That made me reinforce that feeling. That made me carry this feeling through life. It all started there. Why did that happen? Right? Analyze it to the point where it no longer has power over you because you now feel differently about it. You feel, okay, so I don't have to feel bad about who I was. I need to recognize that I was who I was because of a series of forces, but I can feel okay about who I was. That okay feeling is now going to change the aspiration potential for your future. So the analysis is the first point of recognition.
Let me say, look, when I was celibate, there was all of that. So just as you said, like the analyzing, uh, that energy was pushing the analyzing. Like it just that it, that's what's gonna happen. Like it's just it's like an alignment. Like you were saying, like, oh, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this is because of this, and this goes back to that, and all that just goes whoop. And when that happens, it's like when all those when all those connections are made, and then this energy just goes whoosh, and it shoots down the line, and it shoots out.
Exactly. You know, it wells up within us. And those tears that you experienced, what are tears? When we have a fixed emotional perception of ourselves in the past, the powerful transformative potential of tears, crying. What is a cry? A cry is a crow, right? That's literally from old High German and Dutch, right? A cry is a crow. And the crow represents the transformation of being alive and not being alive, right? And so traditional people would have. There are some people that used to hang the cadavers of their loved ones from a spike high up in the air, so that the crows could come and enjoy the fruits of their bodies. It was a sacred way of laying one's loved ones to rest.
Well, isn't that still a practice in the Himalayas?
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Sky funeral.
Yeah. So it's this is what the association with crows, and you know, the other bird for the crow is the, what do they call it? The crow or there's two birds. They look very similar. They look almost identical. They are basically identical. They're slightly different versions of the same thing.
Yeah.
You got the crow, or you got the, what is the other one called? Anyway,
it's not the vulture.
Like
not the
no,
vulture.
it's literally a crow.
Okay.
Literally a crow. They've got the same beak, the same body, the same similar color, almost the same as a crow. In fact, you could mistake the one for the other quite easily.
I think I know what you're talking about. Is the other one kind of gray? Has gray on its back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically a crow, for all intents and purposes, right? In the dark, you might mistake them for each other. So, or in like twilight, you know, like when it's not so bright. But yeah. So the idea of the crow, the word cry, is the letting the emotional patterns or recognitions of ourselves pass away. What a beautiful thought of thinking what crying represents. And so we are disempowering those control mechanisms over us, and so that new ones can be established. And that transformative of that emotional energy of our past's recognition can give us the fuel to become the different people in the future, a better version of ourselves, say, right? Like an alcoholic that's stuck drinking booze every day, and how they're going to get out of the cycle. And they sit down and they cry their hearts out, and they cry and cry and cry and cry. And they realize that, like, I don't know, their dad was an alcoholic, and maybe their dad used to beat their mother, and whatever the story was. And so they had all this aggression or whatever, and they found that when they drank, it went away. And so now they're an alcoholic. And then they recognize that the only reason that they're an alcoholic was because they witnessed that as a child, and it's affected them. And so they don't have to feel bad anymore. And they realize, oh, wow, so I don't actually have to be an alcoholic. Like, I'm only acting out like patterns of my conditioning. And that might give them the inspiration to go to a 12 AA meeting and start adapting the 12 steps. And 3 years down the line, they're no longer an alcoholic, and they're now going to schools to speak to young people, or universities to help people, to prevent them from making the same mistakes that they have. And they become inspirational speakers. And 3 years later, they write a book. 5 years later, they've released their second bestseller. 4 years later, they're being interviewed on TV shows. 5 years later, they've got their own TV show, and they're worth $20 million US. You understand what I mean? And they're doing great work to help everybody in the world that are alcoholics, and they're actually helping people. You know, that's just one example of how a life can change by crying. And I bet you there are people that have this kind of story, that, you know, they sat down and they cried. Like, there was a time in my life where I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, and changed my life. And in deep meditative meditation, I would cry like, so I used to spend, this is, and I'm not joking now, right? So, I think I spent about 5,000 hours crying. Or more. I might have spent 10,000 hours crying over like a couple of decades. Because on average, I would cry for about an hour to an hour and a half a day when I was in deep meditation. I didn't know I was, like, literally, like, my scrotum would be wet, sitting in a puddle of tears. I couldn't change my t-shirt. It was like ridiculous. Because you go into a deep state of meditation and there's just crying. And you don't even realize that it's happening, but your eyes are just bleeding tears, right? You're just like soaking wet and soaking wet and soaking wet. And it's just part of like, it's a natural physiological recalibration of your emotional energy.
I just want to say to the chat, if you meditate and you're not experiencing this, it's okay, because Bush is actually kind of a freak, and has attained levels that are, hard to get to. So just don't feel bad if you're not doing this.
Well, I just worked hard.
Yeah.
So if you're meditating like 8 to 10 hours a day, you're going to break through barriers that you would
Oh, for
not
sure.
just break. Like it's people think, oh, like you meditated 8 hours, 10 hours a day. People don't realize that that's like shoveling coal for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah. I even very recently, I'll tear up, and it's usually when I recognize, or I have a moment with nature. Like, the last couple times where animals showed up, like a rabbit showed up, and like a bird showed up, at just at the right moment. And uh it's like, it just kind of felt like, God was saying, "Hey, what's up?" And in those moments, it's just like, all you can do is, I don't know, all you can do is kind of tear up, and because you're just experiencing, your experience. Like, it just felt like I was experiencing, the divinity that's around us all the time. And it's just like we were saying with the Kundalini energy, the generative force that's within us all the time. But for some reason, as humans, we can, uh I mean, the reason, I mean, we can live our lives and not necessarily be in communion with it, even though it's right there all the time. And that's probably because, we have to live. We can't all be we can't all be mystics on the mountain right now. Or, it's just we're not there right now. And then, civilization you know, has to go on, and someone's got to pick up the trash, and do the plumbing and work on the cars, and build the houses and yada yada.
Yeah. So, like you say, the moment you start to identify with nature,
Yeah, nature's
now
the key.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that our nature, our emotional body, yes, is most plugged in when we're in nature, right? What are you saying? Nature. You want to talk? You want to say no? Yeah. So, okay, I got you. Maybe I'm going to go and put him by his food bowl and his water bowl and say, "You want your food?" Okay, I'm going to take you in 1 second. So I think yeah, he's been running around on the floor doing his thing now. Now he wants to go, and it's time to eat that. He'll start pecking my ear sore soon to tell me when he's like, "I'm thirsty, dude." Or is he going to chew my rosary for a while? But yeah, so being in tune with nature reveals our inner nature.
Hmm.
And our inner nature gets hidden in this world of cold, sharp edges. We live in a world. No, 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 no. Yeah, but that is a new keyboard, Dad. I haven't had a go on that keyboard yet. He wants to play with my keyboard. And that keyboard is highly not wanting to be chewed. So yeah, I think like the world has become sharp edges. And by sharp, cold edges, I mean taxation, bills, um, responsibilities,
phone screens,
work,
war,
war,
nutrition.
everything. And so we're trying to navigate this minefield of reality that we've created for ourselves, or that we allow a small cabal of naughties to create for us, we're using our own consent. as a tool of
Yeah.
creation. And so in a sense, we're responsible, because, like, we said, yeah, okay, you want the keys, you got the keys, take the keys, right? Take the keys to the show. Like, you guys are doing a good job, we'll vote for you, kind of nonsense. But when we step out of that into nature, all of that is gone for a moment, because we're in a world where that doesn't apply. We're in a world where that snake can bite me and my life can be gone. On one hand, we're in a world, on another hand, where that innocent creature doesn't want anything from me, doesn't want, you understand? It's just there, just being. So, there's the natural law everywhere, just being expressed without any interference. And so we then observe that this is the way natural law works. And so, because we're seeing it outside of ourselves, we're more likely to recognize it within ourselves, the natural law. And when we start to recognize natural law, that is the substance of self-knowledge. That self-knowledge is the knowledge of how natural law operates, and that these same natural principles and laws that govern nature and govern life and govern everything are also within us, governing us. I think that sort of synthesis and synergy between observing the natural law on the outside and on the inside, as above, so below, as they like to say, or as inside, as around us, I think is better, is what stimulates that process. And tears are often a response to this, or laughter. Laughter is the other side of tears, no?
Yeah.
If you cry enough, you'll laugh. If you laugh enough, you'll cry.
For sure. Well, I gotta go because it's getting time for everybody to get up. I'm gonna leave everybody with something, and there's a character in The Lord of the Rings, and you probably don't know his name, because he's not in the movies, but he's in the books, and he shows up, I think, twice. And he's the only character that is immune to the ring. And his name is Tom Bombadil. I've started referring to him as Saint Bombadil. But he's encountered early in the first Lord of the Rings trilogy book. And like I said, he's immune to the ring, and he's this example of perfect self-knowledge and communion with nature. And because he knows he knows himself, and he's in communion with nature, he wants for nothing, for no power. He just pretty much just sings and gardens. And he actually he takes the ring from Frodo, and he even puts it on, he plays with it. It doesn't make him disappear or anything, and then he gives it back. So something maybe that's something interesting to investigate. But I feel like if our listeners were to watch this again, it's an hour and 24. You probably will be able to pick up a method of self-discovery here. And if you choose to embark on that sort of journey, definitely reach out to Bush Whisperer. I'm sure he'll be happy to help you along the way. But yeah, I think it was a good talk. What was it called? The Esoteric Keys of Self-Knowledge? Yeah. Absolutely. So me reading about the Caduceus this morning, before I even knew what this talk was called was rather mystic. But things like things like that happen. Don't read too much into what is it called? Uh fuck, what's the word when things happen to you and you think that
Synchronicity.
synchronicities. Yeah. Just appreciate the synchronicity. Don't hang your entire life on it. But anyways,
Just before you go,
yeah.
do you know why this conversation is the esoteric keys of self-knowledge?
Why is that?
Today's number 70.
Number 70.
Yeah, because it's the 19th. Hold on. Yeah, it's
Of the year?
just the numbers. When I did this, sorry, not today's number, but the number 69 breaks down to the number 70 because 69 is a mystic number of 70. So when you break down these numbers, you end up with so it's the 26th, right? 2026. So that's 20th century, 26th years, that's 46, right? And then you add 19 to that, right? And the 19 to 26 becomes 65, right? And the 65 and the 6th month becomes the 71. But the mystic key of 71 is 70. So the mystic number for today is 70 and the actualizing number is 71. So that's where I broke this down from. That's how since we're having a mystic conversation, we're relating to. So it is a synchronicity that you were reading about that today, but I think it's also by divine providence.
Yeah, that's my favorite type of providence. All right, man. Have a good one. Good talking to you. I'm glad we talked. I woke up this morning. I woke up at 4 because I had to go take care of my daughter for a little bit. Then I was laying in bed and I was like, oh crap, I'm never gonna fall asleep. And then I promptly fell asleep and then my alarm went off. But anyways, good talking to you.
As always, lovely talking to you and a total honor. Big love, dear brother. Om Namah Shivaya, and enjoy the dance class, man. I hope your little one has a ball of a time. I'm sure she will.
Thanks,
Big
man.
love to you and your family. Om Shanti.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. Totally. So yeah, divine providence. That's another important thing to consider when we're talking about all of these proverbial keys and how they relate to the spiritual, to the nature of self, to the way in which we identify with ourselves in this world. And I think it's very common that we become lost in ideas of who we think we are. And I think it's quite a natural sort of pitfall for us to get lost into. I'll give you an example. I identify myself and I look at myself and I think, well, I'm a shaman because that's what I do for a living. That's my 9 to 5. Only it's not 9 to 5. It's 24/7. But anyway, that's my 24/7, minus some time for myself and, my son and my girlfriend and my animals and all of that. And so there's a tendency to want to identify ourselves. This is what I do. This is my vocation. A lot of people don't have vocations. It makes it harder to identify. When you got a vocation, it makes it easier to identify with something that's intrinsic to who you are because that vocation drives you. At least when you're identifying, then you're identifying with something that is an emanation of the core self. A lot of people are identifying with even more, like a woman that identifies with I'm pretty, I'm sexy, I'm this, I'm that. That's what I am, I've got nice boobs, I've got nice lips, I've got nice legs, and a guy who identifies with like I could, like, I'm this, I'm good looking, I'm that, I've got a lot of money. Those are really root, very base, mundane things to identify with. Then on another higher level, you can identify with your vocation if you've got a vocation, right? Or you can identify with your career based upon success, which is quite base. Or if your career is a vocation because it's something you do because or your heart drives you, then it's a slightly higher octave of identification. But beyond that, there are different layers of identification. And one can start to identify with, well, this is my emotional being. This is who I am as a human being. These are my feelings. I can identify with my aspirations, and I can identify with my convictions and my worldview and my ideology, right? That's another level to identify with. But then to transcend that is to identify with the core emotional states of who I am, right? I identify with my joys and my sorrows and where I've been, the heritage that I carry, my ancestral heritage that I carry. I can identify with this, but there's layers like an onion. And as we get deeper and closer to ourselves, we start to identify with more intrinsic things. To identify with those deep emotional core elements of who we are is a really powerful place to be at, because it means we're on the right road. And it's, at some point we will identify as a pure being, a being of pure consciousness. That's in a state of absolute being, and that absolute being in that pure state of consciousness will then become like a very high spiritual place of identification. So that we don't have to identify with the feelings that we feel or the thoughts that we think. And we're locked into identity. And we need to recognize that it's okay. We don't have to feel bad about the fact that we're locked into identity, right? Namaste. We got Zen. How are you doing, Zen? Hope you're good. We've got, who have we got here? We've got Monkey About. Namaste, Monkey About. Tom Rue, big love. Namaste, Tom. How are you doing? D Love, namaste to you guys. Big blessings and peace, honor, and respect. Hope you guys are all well. So these identities that we wear then become like crystallized forms, right? So then there's me, for example. So there's me. There's the bush whisperer. So this is my like persona identity, hypothetically. Then there's me, Patrick. It's my second name when I'm working. Then there's me, Franklin. That's how I see myself as my like primary identity, right? And then within that, going into Franklin, there are different layers of being, right? You a good way to understand your limitations and your forces are probably through the powers of your name. Understanding the numbers, how they relate, will give an insight into, you can break it down. You can look at it on the Enneagram system. Not that weird Enneagram system that's been mashed up with new age numerology and stuff that everybody else follows that came from Ikazo. But if you use traditional numerology, like from the Vedic numerology or from the numerology of Chaldean, which is like proper numerology before they try to psyops it out and turn it into some weird kind of numerology, which is what people are trying to do with that so-called Enneagram system. That's like, well, I personally don't agree with it. I think it's toxic. And it was invented by psychologists and psychiatrists for people to be pigeonholed into particular systems. Doesn't really have a true occult heritage. They have tried to loosely associate it with numerology, but they weren't numerologists when they created it. So they only got so close to the point. However, understanding the numbers, for example, of your name can give you a sense of insight and sense of power of who you are. And looking at the different forms of numerological association can also share a certain amount of insight. So we need to constantly be looking at ourselves, understanding what makes us tick, and self-evaluating and analyzing our feelings to a point. Obviously, the danger of analyzing feelings is that we can become disconnected from feelings. So there always has to be a balance. And that balance is essentially what this image represents, right? This is a Vedic yin-yang yin symbol, if you want to go that far. And isn't necessarily too far away from this image itself, caduceus. Yeah, it's the same thing essentially. And so we can basically get to that recognition within ourselves of just exactly what it is that makes us tick, what it is that's driving us, how it is that we have come to find ourselves within the particular field of life that we find ourselves running through. Because life is essentially quite challenging. And when we start to recognize this and we start to, take responsibility for what we are putting into life, we start recognizing and realizing that we are partially writing the story of our lives. And we become co-creatively involved in the writing of the story of our life because we take the pieces of the past to write the future with. And so this is why life is cyclic and why we find that the past repeats itself as the future. It's part of that sort of condition of humanity. And so recognizing these elements will give us a sense of personal empowerment. And that personal empowerment will be able to take us to a place where we're able to transcend the limitations that plague us. And yes, if this place is quite misty, it's misty because of our frankincense. I'm hotboxing frankincense and myrrh. You should all be hotboxing frankincense and myrrh, by the way. It's really good for you. Let's see what myrrh looks like. It looks like little like crystals like this. Don't know if you can see that. And frankincense looks like little golden crystals. They're all sap of tree, naturally. The myrrh is very powerful cleansing tonic. And it has an effect on the alignment of the spiritual bodies. And the frankincense is a very inspiring effect as well on the lungs and on the body's ability to bring prana into the system, which obviously also, this is the frankincense, right? Sometimes it can be a darker color like that. And so, yeah, bringing us to be in touch with our senses is really important because we want to cultivate common sense, right? And we think of common sense as something that's off there in abstract mental land, but actually common sense is something that's very much a part of our physical makeup, part of our sensual matrix. So common sense is the most common sense that there is the sense of smell. And so the sense of smell is related to common sense in a very big way. Hence, the sense of taste and the sense of smell are very much related. And the sense of taste is also very much related to the sense of touch. And the sense of touch is very much related to the sense of vision, funnily enough. We don't realize that we're literally touching those light waves. So, yeah, to recognize how important it is to be locked into our physical bodies for the purposes of mindfulness is really quite a powerful way to stay aligned within ourselves and become a bridge between the future and the past. And becoming a bridge between the future and the past gives us a potential to be able to move into new possible paradigms and new possible dimensions. And so the proverbial keys, right, of self-knowledge are always available to us. We just need to literally just put them in the keyhole and turn the key. And one of the very powerful ones that people don't recognize, right, is that obviously the key of analysis I was talking about before is analyzing the self. Another one is the key of acceptance, right, is to just accept other people the way they are, to just accept ourselves the way we are. Because acceptance leads to liberation. The moment we accept people and we accept ourselves, we're more likely to be able to accept circumstances. When we're able to accept circumstances, people, and ourselves, we're not so likely going to be upset as much by external circumstances, nor will our excitement, happiness, and joy be so tied into external circumstances either. It gives us an extra sort of proverbial layer of buffering so that we're able to get a very clear sense of perspective with regards to the bigger picture. And that way we're able to sort of extrapolate the fundamentals of reason behind the structure of being and the way things are, which is going to become a factor that reveals the matrix of reality, which is essentially these laws or principles that are responsible for structuring the very nature of experience, consciousness, and reality as it is, as we're experiencing it, and as it seems to be. So all of these factors all need to be taken into consideration, I think, when we are like moving towards the deep element of self-knowledge. And another part of self-knowledge is empathy. You see, unless we can be empathetical, if we can experience empathy towards others, we're more likely to experience empathy towards ourselves. And very often people cut themselves off from empathy from other people because they want to actualize their goals or whatever they want. And in that process, when we cut ourselves off to the empathy of feeling what other people are feeling, we are less likely to feel what we're feeling. If we allow ourselves to feel what other people are feeling, we're more likely to feel what we're feeling. The more that we feel what we're feeling, the more likely we are to understand our emotional conditions. And that more likely we are to understand our emotional conditions, the greater the likelihood of us reaching a higher level of consciousness where we're able to move towards our goals, vocational goals, more steadily. And I think all of these sort of add up, right, to form a proverbial consensus of being. So these are all proverbial keys that we need to hang on to. We need to hold on to them. We need to keep them in perspective. And patience is the other very powerful key. Don't expect everything to change right now. Take your time. Life is short, but it's going to take a while. Life is short, but it's going to take a while. Be prepared to enjoy the waiting. Be prepared to enjoy what's happening between the actualizations of your goals and where you're at now. Big love. Namaste, dear Howard. How are you doing, brother? I hope you're well. I'm about to be going off in just a few minutes. I'm going to have to go. I can hear my boy in the background. But I'm just finishing this off, the last, not mentioning a few more of these esoteric keys of self-knowledge. Patience being like a fundamental one. And patience is the power of the Father. Patience and acceptance are fundamentally linked. And if you want to empower your will towards manifestation, then you're going to need patience and acceptance, because acceptance and patience causes the waters to subside. And when the waters subside, then we're able to harness the reservoir of potential gravity that water has, that mass, and move that water like a tide towards our goal. If you think of it in that way, it helps. And that then becomes a steady, constant flowing will towards your goal. That means you'll be able to more likely manifest in life what it is that you want to manifest in life, because the will is the key. Obviously, it's not just as simple as the will, but a lot of people, they don't develop their wills. And so they think that they're just going to get what they want and it's just going to like appear. It's like, I'll sit down and say to them, no, you actually have to train your will to step by step move in the direction you want to. And that will by nature move you in that direction as well. So your thoughts, your words, your actions will all start to become aligned with your will, if your will is a consistent force moving towards your goals. So in order to liberate the will, we do need acceptance and we do need patience. And the patience being party, yeah, party being the power of the Father, causes us to become integrated. Because when we are patient and we are accepting, we accept who we are, we accept others, and we're patient, then the different parts of ourselves start to integrate into a singular being, a singular mass, if you will. And that we call integrity. And that integrity relates to the truth, honesty. So integrity and honesty is a key. And that relates to how honest we've been with ourselves, especially with regards to, you know, who we think we are, what we want out of life, where we've been, and how we see ourselves, how we view ourselves. So all of these different elements all have to be sort of brought into alignment. And yeah, it takes a while. It's going to take a minute. So there's no rush, and there's no pressure. And I think that's the other thing to recognize and realize, life is a journey. We've just got to enjoy the journey and bring as much knowledge and understanding from the journey into ourselves and from ourselves into the journey. And if we do, then we will always realize and recognize how we were a part of the co-creative experience that has brought us to the aspects or the part of life that we wish to experience. And so we do have this power to affect our reality, and both in terms of the subjective, how we view it and how we experience it, and both in terms of the objective, what we actually manifest and attract towards us on the physical plane. So that self-knowledge is the key. It's the key to everything. It's the key to magic. It's a key to mystical power. It's a key to happiness. It's the key to joy. It's also the key to being able to make sure we don't miss somebody important, talking about something we just literally deposited into the well of self. So yeah, don't miss the ride. Don't miss the show. You are here having the show. It's a conscious experience. Be a part of it and recognize that what you put into that proverbial mystical box of self is what you're going to pull out of it. And that brings us back to how we behave towards other people. Are we compassionate? Are we empathic? Are we loving? Do we do what we know is best? Are we integrous? Are we honest? Are we authentic? Are we real? All of these, how we push them outwards, we're putting into the box of ourselves, because we like to recognize you and me and them and him and her and us as all separate beings. But actually, what's inside of you is inside of me. And so when I put something inside of you, I'm putting it inside of me. When I draw something forth from inside of you, I'm drawing it forth from inside of me. So if you can draw forth beautiful vibrations from inside of other people, you're drawing that forth from inside yourself. If you can put beautiful vibrations into other people, you're putting beautiful vibrations into yourself. And sometimes life isn't just going to be about beautiful vibrations. There's going to have to be boundaries. You're going to deal with people that are difficult, and you're going to have to be very clear. And sometimes you're going to have to be like, put your foot down. And that's just how it is. But how do you feel when you're doing that? Are you doing it with love because you know that that's the best thing to do, or are you doing it out of vengeance and anger? So all of these different things we need to recognize, because what we're putting out is what we're really getting back. And when we realize this equity of self is the source of all will and the source of all power, then we'll start considering how we use our power more carefully. So I think that's sort of like the crux of the conversation. I think it's been a little less than 2 hours. How long have we been? Hour and 48 minutes. Definitely time to crank it up. And it's been an absolute lovely honor being here with all of you guys. Total honor having Jeremy on. We love TallTree. Hope you guys are going to have a great, great weekend. Tomorrow is going to be a great, great show as well. Actualizing number of tomorrow is 72, which is interesting. Mystic number of tomorrow is 71. Actualizing number is 72. So what that means is it's probably going to be about the actualizing of the 72 elements as they actualize. The angels and the archangels. I have to think about how that's going to come together. Probably this afternoon. And that'll be the round table for tomorrow. Otherwise, yeah, man, D-Love, trusting the self. That's all very much a big part of the process, right? And if we are doing authentically and following our heart, then we'll never even question that. It would just be a natural instinct. Like children just do that. They don't even have to think about it because they're being authentic. And so that's the beauty of children. It's why we always love children. Everybody loves children because children are so honest. They're so authentic. They're so real. They're so genuine. There's no pretense. There's no nonsense. They just are what they are. Animals are like that. So we have to become more like children and more like animals. So with that, I'll leave that with you guys for today. Sending you all so much love, warm blessings, peace, honor, and respect. Please, guys, do like this show. Do share it. Make a comment in the comments box after the show is done. That'll help to push the algorithms. Otherwise, big love, big blessings. Take it easy. And don't forget to smile. And I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow. Om Shanti. Thank you guys for coming. Hope you got what you came for, and I hope you got more than what you came for, and I hope you got more than what I gave, and more than what Jeremy gave as well. I think we were just sharing our hearts with you guys openly. So there you go. Big love, big blessings. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shanti. Peace, honor,